How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to get into this topic. We got to get into this issue. It's kind of hot, a little bit under the radar. It's not really a super big topic, but I've seen it posted here and there. It's sparking little conversations, and I wanted to bring it over here to talk about it, to talk about China, foreign policy, and also racism and what it actually means. Now, this article is on The Root. You see it on the top left-hand corner of the screen. The forum that this is on is called The Grapevine. It's just part of The Root, the same way that Very Smart Brothers and stuff like that. It's all part of the same umbrella. They all kind of discuss the same thing, which is basically how to be a black victim in 2017, 2018, right? So I came here for that expressed reason because I knew that they would have a victimhood narrative to go along with the story. If I was to get it from mainstream media, they would present it in a kind of vanilla way. I want to get that victimhood narrative that's out there and crush it, essentially. And you see the headline on the screen before you. Anti-blackness goes east. China just banned, quote, hip hop culture, unquote. Now, we're going to get into what this actually is, what the actual rule is. I'm not really sure what the communist regime of China did. Maybe they just banned hip hop from television, the internet, which is a whole different ball of wax. But we're going to see pretty much what they did and what The Root, the Black Liberal Crying Fest website, has to say about it. Now, before we get into the actual article, there's a little picture here right behind me. And this is in China, of course. And you see this guy right here on his head. He's doing like some kind of old school hip hop move. And the subhead of that picture says a contestant performs during a regional match of the 2005 Battle of the Year Hip Hop Dance China contest on May 12th, 2005 in Chengdu of Sichuan province, China. Very interesting. Normally when I would see stuff like this back in the day, old school dances, they would have a sheet of cardboard under their head. But to his credit, he is on the hardwood floor. So I guess the bicycle and or motorcycle helmet makes more sense for this situation rather than just having his head straight on the hardwood floor. But I digress. Let's get into the actual article and see what it says. And the article reads, it's clear that anti-blackness is everywhere, from Africans in India who face violent discrimination to white niches in Nigeria. It is not only Europeans who dismiss blackness as inferior, less than, or other. Sometimes it comes from other folks of color, and China just stepped up to show that it too has skin in the losing game. Now, first of all, there's a lot to so-called unpack. That's my favorite word of 2018, unpack. There's a lot to unpack right here. First of all, how is it that being against hip hop culture is the equivalent to being anti-black? In many ways, what we see in modern day hip hop culture that is, presented to the masses through mainstream means, most of that culture is anti-black. And I'll explain. You're talking about, what's the guy out there? Lil Pump, my girl, she on cocaine. First of all, he did not say girl. He said the B word to describe a woman. Second of all, he said that she's on cocaine. So you got two strikes right there that are against black culture if hip hop is to be representing us. First of all, you calling women derogatory names. I will never do that. I don't even curse. I respect women. And I think that a culture, when you have the mainstream people that are out there using that kind of language to describe women, I don't want to be associated with that. And then the promotion of drug use. It was a guy that just died the other day. What was his name? Fredo Santana, 27 years old. And he had a seizure after he got saved from another seizure. And a lot of rappers are having seizures nowadays because most of them are on lean, which is basically liquid heroin. Okay. And these guys are out there with the double cups. You'll have these styrofoam cups and they'll have another cup inside of it. So you see the top, that top part, you see that twice. So it's like a symbol of them drinking so-called lean liquid heroin. They're promoting heroin, cocaine, all kind of negative things against black women, against black people, against the black community as a whole. But somehow being against that is being anti-black. It does not make sense. And then Africans in India, that's a whole different story. I mean, you want to talk about discrimination, xenophobia. I mean, the same thing is going on right now in Africa among Africans. You're talking about South Africa, where Nigerians, who are the same people that are going to India facing the so-called discrimination, Nigerians to be discriminated against in South Africa and it's vice versa. They don't get along. Just because you happen to be a person of color or black or whatever it is, does not mean you're going to automatically get along with somebody else. You know, there can be differences in culture, differences in language, differences in just general behavior that you have that would cause conflict. It's not always about race, especially not in Africa, where the strife is between people that are of the same race. And then white niches, I think that's somebody, some rapper or something that's talking about skin bleaching cream. I mean, skin bleaching cream is all over the world. I mean, I don't understand how that's anti-blackness, because the people that are doing it are black themselves. So it's just really dumb. It's this person, whoever wrote this article, is them just saying, oh, it's anti-black because I feel that way. But I'm going to go ahead and move on. On Friday, China's government banned hip-hop culture from television, that and actors with tattoos. So I guess, you know, the tattoos, that goes along with the hip-hop culture. It is what it is. And even though we know in a time where Macklemore, Eminem, and even Gerald G-Eazy Gillum are arguably the face of hip-hop, when I think of hip-hop, I still think of a culture that centers African-American men and boys and hypermasculinity. Sure, it's genius mixed with pathology and hot beats, but let's be clear that hip-hop was created by and grew up under the stewardship of black and Hispanic men. Now, something was said right there in this little paragraph that I want to point out. Hypermasculinity. Now, is that a positive thing or a negative thing? Because people like this, who wrote this article, who appear on The Root all the time, talk about hypermasculinity in a negative way. So if you think that hip hop promotes a negative ideology according to most of the rhetoric on your website, then how can you say that being against that makes you anti-black? Because you're against it as well. Are you anti-black? And then the whole thing about the white rappers dominating hip hop, I mean, that's not really true. Even if it is, so what? Who's consuming hip hop the most? It ain't black folks. It's mostly white people. So why does it even matter? Why are you worried about being the dominant force in an industry that you're not even the dominant consumer of? I don't even get it. But even beyond what she's talking about by these three guys, most of rap is still controlled by blacks. When you're talking about the songwriters, the producers, the rappers, the overall talent in hip hop is still black. So to say that it's controlled by three white guys or they're the biggest faces is just a victimhood narrative that you're putting out there. And it contradicts you talking about hip hop in kind of a negative way. Okay, because on one end, you want to protect it. On the other end, you say that it's bad. Maybe you want hip hop to be what you want it to be, to change for the so-called better. I don't really know what's going on, but if you are somehow against it, then how are you going to say China is anti-black for also being against it? But I digress. Let's get back to the article. Yet China wants no parts of this culture, which is definitely black in origin, to be seen on television. According to Time magazine, the State Administration of Press, Publication, Radio, Film, and Television of the People's Republic of China now specifically requires that programs should not feature actors with tattoos or depict hip-hop culture, subculture, non-mainstream culture, and dispirited culture, decadent culture. I mean, you know, of course, I'm not a guy that's in favor of communism at all, but that description of hip hop, I can't really argue with. Now, whether or not it should be censored is a different story. I don't believe in censorship unless it's just something that is totally beyond the pale. I don't believe in showing graphic, gratuitous nudity to small children or something like that. But when you're talking about hip hop, I mean, I don't think it should just be totally censored, even though I'm not a fan of what is going on. But the description of it was not wrong. But I'm going to move on. The Chinese government seems intent on erasing all forms of hip hop from the public, although it has already been entrenched there and around the world for years. Time reports. The ban follows the removal of prominent rapper Guy, G-A-I, hopefully I'm pronouncing that name correctly, from Hunan TV's Singer, a hit competition show. Clips of Guy, whose real name is Zhou Yan, were also removed from China's Hunan TV's official YouTube channel, but no official explanation has been given. He does, however, appear in the show's trailer. Wang Ho, aka PG1, another well-known rapper, was forced to apologize earlier this month after one of his songs, Christmas Eve, was criticized for promoting drug culture and insulting women. Exactly what I'm talking about. Rapper Mao Yangi, aka Vava, was cut from the variety show Happy Camp, according to Tencent News. I'm not sure if that's Tencent as in the very big company in China or T-Cent, T-E-C-E-N-T, but I'm going to move on. Music by Triple H, an influential underground rapper, not the wrestler from WWE, Chinese guy, has also been removed from major streaming sites. And a contestant on the show, Super Brian, which is not hip hop related, even had his hip hop style necklace blurred out. Let me see if I can go ahead and see this here. Let me see if they'll show it. Oh, this is on Weibo. Now they're not going to show it. I'm good. I don't even want to go deal with China stuff. Time reports that many on Chinese social media have responded angrily to the ban, but the government controls that too. Things that have a subtext of blackness always seem to get hit with the deviant label. So what does that say about your thoughts on people who created it? I mean, at the end of the day, before I even give my thoughts, let's read a little bit about Miss Angela Helm. That's interesting. You see this little sticker right here. That's Joni, I think her name was Joni Miller. Joni something, a.k.a. Angela Davis, the cop killer who was down in Cuba. And her little thing here says, Miss Bronner Helm is contributing editor at The Root, always down for the cause, never down for the count. Matter of fact, let's see her actual Twitter profile here. Okay, not sure what's going on. I'm going to go ahead and just go back. There's a few comments here. And this person, I think I saw this comment. I want to read this comment before I give my thoughts. This person, LJ909 says, I guess the Chinese that love hip hop culture will have to go elsewhere for their hip hop culture fix. Pretty much all the other Asian countries like black hip hop culture. For instance, the people you see above are from Japan. They're referred to as B-stylers. And honestly, if you head to Long Beach, this is the way that most Asians there look anyway. It is cultural appropriation, blatant. They are Japanese teens who want to be black, a mixture of black and hip hop culture, which is one and the same. Vice did an excellent article about it a few years back. And I guess this is hip hop culture. I guess this is like inherently black stuff. I don't dress like that. You see the way I dress, polos and stuff like that. I don't dress like that. You know, you see mostly Mexican game makers dressed like that. That's not necessarily black culture. I mean, when I see them, I don't think black. I think like cholo. Matter of fact, there's like a cholo thing going on in Asia right now where they're trying to represent the, you know, Southern Hispanic style. That right there, these guys might be, you know, have more of the black culture. But, you know, at the end of the day, everybody borrows from everyone. Because look at it like this. When you got these women, black women with the blonde, long hair like Beyonce, you know, look at Monique right here. That right there, that's not natural black hair. That's like, you know, I didn't have to go to a new place to even find what I was talking about as it relates to black folks taking from other people and using it for themselves. I don't look at it like that. I look at it like everybody takes from everyone. This is the world we live in, where no culture is just totally sacred to you unless you just totally stay isolated and never leave your particular region. And Chinese did for a long time. But if you are going to different places and you're taking in new things, then of course you're going to take bits and pieces from different places. Like the Greeks, they took baklava and gyros from the Turkey, Middle East. Okay, that's not necessarily native Greek food. If I'm wrong about that, let me know in the box. But my whole point is that everybody appropriates. Now, as far as rap music somehow being the equivalent to black culture or hip hop, whatever they want to call it, why is it that every time I see on the internet, on YouTube, when there's a discussion about hip hop music featuring black folks, and it's mostly black liberals that talk about it, I don't think you had that many black conservatives to talk about rap music all the time on the internet. But every time I see the conversation, there's always something negative. They say, oh, I don't like these guys wearing dresses, these guys wearing makeup and purses. You know, they're talking about drugs, they're talking about beating women, they're talking about all these violent, nasty things. There's never anything positive, this, that, and the third. So why is that the conversation I see that's all the time on the internet? Matter of fact, if I was China and I want to do some research about hip hop and the effects of it, about the kind of topics to talk about, I would just look at some of these black folks, black liberals talk about it on the internet and then just make my assertion based on that. I would say, oh, okay, these guys over here talking about it in this way, that must be what it is. And that's pretty much it. They talk about it in a negative way. Black folks, that is. And some of these same people, even in this article, they'll talk about it negatively, then say if a person doesn't want it or China doesn't want it or whoever else doesn't want to have it involved with their life, then they'll say they're racist if they're not black. It's dumb. It's really dumb. And at the end of the day, as I close, do not affiliate me because of my skin color with hip hop culture. I do not subscribe to that culture. That's just not what it is. I'm more of a conservative kind of guy. I'm just not even really part of that world. I'm more of a metal, melodic metal, death metal, that kind of person. Hip hop nowadays, in my opinion, you got two types that gets pushed out there. And I'm not trying to really find this underground stuff because you got to go through all kind of different changes to find some good, so-called good underground hip hop music. The mainstream stuff or the more popular stuff is all about drugs. Like at one point in time in the 90s, it was about selling drugs. Now it's about using drugs. Okay, maybe using and selling. Some of the dope fiends are also dope dealers, which is weird, but I digress. If it ain't about drugs, using or selling, it's about how can I violate a woman or how can I violate a man? I'm not really into that kind of stuff. Or, aside from the negative and violent stuff, you have the more positive side, your J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, whatever, but they're preaching Black Lives Matter type stuff. I'm not trying to hear that in my music. I don't want to get preached to about how bad white people are or what I got to do for my community, this, that, and the third. I don't want to get preached to in music, nor do I want to be told a story about how fun it is to use drugs. I'm a teetotaler. I don't drink or smoke, and I'm not into abusing anyone, man, male, female, whatever. That's just what it is. I prefer metal. I like the music better, the actual harmonies better, and I also like the minimized message. When there is a message, it's something that is universal and not just applicable to one kind of individual. It's more of an inclusive view rather than hip hop, which is very exclusive. But at the end of the day, I say that it's not anti-black for China to ban hip hop. If anything, it's communist to ban a certain genre of music from television. But the reasoning for doing it, nobody can really disagree with. Even in this article, they really didn't disagree with the reason. They didn't say, oh, hip hop is just fine, there's nothing wrong with it. They were just saying because hip hop is inherently black, then banning it is a wrong thing. But what do you think? Do you think it was a good move by the Chinese government to ban hip hop from television? And about that, before I close real this time, if they ban it from the internets, the Chinese, they pretty much all use VPNs anyway. There's a lot of stuff that is banned from Chinese internet, maybe even television. There's a way around it. So if you really want to get it, then it's not really a problem. But do you agree with the actual core message of the Chinese, which is that hip hop can be damaging to their citizens? Do you think that hip hop is not damaging? You think it's just fine? Do you think the songs about drugs, about violence, about just a decadent and just negative culture, do you think that those songs are just fine? It's not really a big deal. Live and let live. Whatever your comments are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.